started these writing vlogs, I had this idea of just really producing them as whenever I wanted, but ideally at least once a month. Ideally I would be posting on Lost in Korea once a month, and it's been easy posts like poetry I've been lagging on. Having said that, it brings up the point that I want to kind of address, and that well, there's two things. First, it's that life just doesn't stop, and I definitely try to live by this idea of keeping your sphere of activities going and growing. And that's something that I learned a few years ago, and honestly I wish I could remember the original author who I could attribute it to, but I can't. But the principle is right there. Keep your sphere of activities going and growing. And that is an idea that I embraced at a time when I needed to move on from something in my life, but seeing that it was a good practice, I decided to live with those words as part of a motto. Korea, while the motivation was somewhat clear to me, the practice of it, the doing of it, was never clear at all. So, what am I saying? What I'm getting at is, while I made a plan for this website, I never had a specific destination, right? So what does it mean to produce things? It means you know what you want to make and you make it. And as I've grown the idea of Lost in Korea, I've come to appreciate the difficulties involved in not only creative writing, but also nonfiction writing, which I already knew. So there's two main things I wanted to talk about. Life keeps going and growing, okay? And in between the time when I formulated this new plan for Lost in Korea, this new schedule, and now, in the time that I formulated the new plan of Lost in Korea and of the making of this video, I started seeing someone, and with that, it's a new element in the mix. So where I made this plan, it was based off of a schedule that's not necessarily the same anymore, because it's not that steady. Alright, that's life happens. And so we need to take these things and adapt with them. That means making the use of my time while I have it. It also means understanding that there will probably be a reduction in certain things, such as being able to read and take notes as I used to. But it also highlights the fact that when I had more time, I wasn't capitalizing it.
And so, really what I want to get at and what I think is important is that when life adds new things to your plate, there you go. When life adds new things to your plate, as a writer, it's sort of a test of your resolve. To quote Rainer Rilke. To quote Rainer Rilke.
Here's a funny thing that happened. Let me run it by you. See, I created this whole plan for myself this invigorated schedule for writing. To paraphrase Rainer Rilke, do you feel the urge to write from the depths of your soul? And if so, it's not that you just want to write, you feel the need to write. It's very important. So, when I followed the path of life that in many ways I'm setting for myself, but at the same time I'm following the natural curves of the landscape, so to speak, I always find myself asking this question: do I want to write or do I need to write? In fact, sometimes I can get into a rather sad state because I don't feel the poetic voice all the time, and my lack of inspiration at times makes me question whether I really am a writer or I'm just an imposter. And honestly, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to shake that feeling, because there are moments where I hear the poetic voice, I hear the music, so to speak, and the poetry just comes flowing through me. And there are other times when I hear nothing. And it honestly makes me sad. And we all, as a creative person, you will face doubts. You'll face doubts about your ability. You'll face doubts about how your work will be received. You will have doubts about the value of what you're doing. And again, those are tests. Those are tests of your resolve as to whether you are going to continue to put forth your work to do what you want to do. You know, besides writing, I have a large collection of books, which I call my research, and I do have a research plan. You know, my books, though disconnected of multiple subjects, I'm connecting them in my own research plan, because everything can inform everything else. A holistic look, I believe, will lead to greater wisdom and greater insight. So, a lot of people who I have discussed and shared the fact that I have a collection of over 700 books. So even like saying that right now, like my collection is over 700, and people doubt my ability to get through this collection. And yes, it will take time. It's probably 10 years worth of reading, probably more, really, realistically. And that was before, when I had that schedule where I would focus on it for so long. Anyway, the size of the workload makes most people believe that because they can't do it or they wouldn't do it, I can't do it. It's a test of my resolve. Or I get questioned as to the actual value of doing this. What is the actual value of reading and writing so much? What people are asking me really is, how are you going to make money off of this? That's the value. They're seeking a monetary value. I personally have come to the point where, though I live in this society and am very much an active member in it and becoming more entrenched in it every day, I realize that this is all arbitrary. This is all somewhat of a fantasy that we all believe. The value that's assigned to a dollar bill is a value that we've created. And the only reason a dollar bill has any value at all, beyond being a piece of paper, is because of our belief in that value. Now, the economy is sort of like an imaginary thing, though it's got a very real impact. And I know that sounds insane. How can the economy be an imaginary thing? What I'm talking about is the measures of economy, the metrics that we have for economy. I mean, even economics itself, which some claim it's a science, it's not a science. It can't be a science. There's no way to actually have a laboratory type of experiments. And really, all it is, if anything, you could call it an observational science. And even that, it's... I wouldn't call economics a science. I would call it more just a study of social behavior. Which, okay, you can be scientific about it, but the problem is that there's no predictive mechanism for economics. And a lot of people would argue with that. So maybe I should just cut that out. And let's not talk about economics and focus on the writing. So, on your writing journey, at least on my writing journey, people have questioned, have asked, how am I going to gain value from this beyond just the satisfaction of completing it, or beyond the satisfaction of achievement? Honestly, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I'm not there yet. I'm still developing as a writer, and as frustrated as I am that I'm not at the level that I want to be at, that's how I know I will one day be at the level that I desire, because that dissatisfaction is like an itch that I cannot scratch. Or it's like, it's worse than an itch. It's something antagonizing that's just coming from the depth of my being. And when I don't get to write as I want to, I do feel stressed. The second thing that I wanted to talk about, and a little bit more briefly, is that while there are things that will take you away from your ability to write, or things that disrupt the schedule that you wanted to make yourself, you have to realize that everything is impermanent. So even if you had that perfect schedule for a year, something would change it eventually. It's just the way things are. And even if I had that perfect schedule implemented, the likelihood of being able to stay to it consistently is itself very hard to reach. So not only are changes in your life a test of your resolve, they're also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to fetch water from new wells of experience, and thereby enlighten and freshen your writing, and expand it, really, because you get these insights from doing things that you weren't doing before. Your scope is not so limited. So embrace these things, incorporate them to your writing. And no, it's not going to be easy, but that's the point. You don't do things because they're easy. You do them because you want to achieve something. And nothing great is achieved by just waiting for it to come your way.